Welcome back to the Out of the Rough podcast presented by We Know Fantasy. As always, my name is Nate with We Know Fantasy, and a different look for you guys today. If you're on a visual aspect of this podcast, or if you're listening to this on a audio aspect, excuse me, you're gonna hear a different voice. Joining me today is Parker. Parker, how are we doing?
Hey Nate, thanks for having me on, man. Excited to be here today.
Yeah. Jake is coming back from Las Vegas, so that's why he's not with us. So he had a bit of a vacation there to
Vegas.
Las
Hopefully
Vegas.
he
So
makes it back.
yeah, I mean, he told me he'd be on his way back, and he goes, "I don't think I'll be in any form to record a podcast this week." And I said, "I don't blame you." So
Yeah,
Parker jumped on here with me today, and it's been a while, Parker.
absolutely.
You're not new to the podcast. You were around. It's probably been a year close to since the last time you're on the podcast. But what you been up to since? I know you've been working on your golf game personally. So how are things going?
Yeah, just living the work from home life. So working the 9 to 5 and, contributing to the golf areas where I can. Love just getting the daily picks in. I'm an avid golf fan. That's what I consider myself. So happy to be, part of the team here and talk about some golf today. But yeah, planning a wedding with my fiance in August. But other than that, just kind of heads down, working on life, doing, same things that everybody else is, paying the bills and enjoying some golf on the side. So
Well, congratulations
excited to
on
be here.
the
Thanks, Nate.
upcoming wedding. That's awesome. I've been happily
Yeah,
married
for sure.
for this will be year 8, I believe. So yeah,
Nice.
it's a wonderful thing. But how's your 2024 betting season going? Do you have any big winners along the way? Anything cool to talk about?
Yeah, yeah, I've had a couple good ones. I hit Nap at the Mexico Open, which
Okay.
was my best outright. But I mean, I have hit Scotty a couple outrights, but I don't really consider that sharp
No.
shooting by any means. I think my best one of the year though is I did snipe Matt Wallace first round leader a handful of weeks back at 100 to 1. So that's my kind of I'm on a first round leader streak. I haven't hit an outright in like 6 weeks, but I hit Matt Wallace 4 weeks ago, and then I hit Xander at the PGA. So yeah, having a decent season. Continuing to track as always via my socials, but yeah, it's been a little bit of time since my last outright, so I'm definitely thirsty to talk about the Canadian Open, and hopefully we've got one between the two of us today.
There we go. And yeah, you mentioned they were the first round leaders. Those are fun because you don't have a 4 day sweat; you have a 1 day sweat, and
Right.
usually the odds are longer too. So those are always great ones to start your week. And if you can double up with the first round leader and then outright to have yourself a fantastic week, that's always a good one. It's
Oh yeah.
been a long time
I
since I
mean,
had
might
one
have
of
to
those,
hang it
but
up if I ever do the double tandem
there we
there for
go.
you. But that
Um,
would be one heck of a week.
it would. But where can we find you on social media, Parker?
You can find me on X or Twitter, whatever you still call it. It's P Smith 412 is my handle. I'm originally born and raised from Pittsburgh, although I reside in Denver, Colorado now. So that's the origin of the 412. But yeah, just first initial last name. So a pretty easy one there.
Yeah, and if you're following me, myself, Nate on Twitter at WKF Nate, I retweeted your card today. So if you're looking to find him in an easier outlet, if you follow me, you can just click on that right there on top of my timeline somewhere. You can click on Parker's page there and drop him a follow. And we do appreciate you hopping on here with us. But follow We Know Fantasy on all forms of social media at We Know Fantasy. Visit WeKnowFantasy.com for some more fantasy sports content, fantasy baseball, basketball, football, NASCAR, golf, everything in between. We have you covered. That's where you can find my Out of the Rough betting article series. That's really where I go in depth, break down each and every week of the DP World Tour, PGA Tour, as well as the LPGA majors. On the We Know Fantasy Podcast Network, you can find the We Know Fantasy NASCAR podcast with Cody and Devin. Fantastic job they do over there. Same thing we do here. They break down the course, not the course, right? The track, the history, give their betting cards, and they have made a bit of money doing it this season. They're very good at what they do there, so make sure you give them guys a shout out as well. Since Jake's not here, follow or join our Discord. Jake usually does that part of the podcast, but our Discord, you can find it on our socials, our website. I usually tweet it out once a week, but hop in there. It's just it's a free place just to join some like-minded guys and gals, just chatting some golf each and every day of the week. Maybe Monday, Tuesday with your card creation, your DFS lineups, or just simply we're watching the tournament, talking it out on the Discord. So that's free to join. We have upwards of 200 members there, so hop in there and have a chat with us about some golf. But Parker, we're here to talk about some golf this week. We have 3 tournaments across all aspects of the golfing world. We have, of course, the RBC Canadian Open on the PGA Tour. We have the European Open on the DP World Tour, and of course the U.S. Women's Open on the LPGA. But we'll kick it off here with the PGA Tour side of things, the RBC Canadian Open. And man, if you are new to this sport and you have the chance to go back and watch the final, even just the final few holes, or even the final hole of last year's edition of this tournament, that is as good as golf gets, right? A 72-foot miracle putt on the second playoff hole by Canadian Nick Taylor, become the first Canadian to win his country's Open since what, 1954? It's like 59 years or something since it's been done. But yeah, that the scene that ensued with the swarming of the green. Of course, Adam had one infamously tackled by
Yeah.
security guards. But yeah, man, that's the type of stuff I live for. I mean, it helped that I was on a Nick Taylor bet at 75 to 1. I mean, that was one of those rare
Oh,
tournaments where it was
there you go.
a no sweat, because I had Tommy Fleetwood as well in an outright. So that playoff was a no sweat for me. Of course, Nick Taylor would have paid more at 75 to 1 opposed to a Tommy Fleetwood. But man, just the scenes. This is the type of stuff. I mean, a win on a regular season PGA Tour event cemented Nick Taylor into his country's, sports history for forever, right? So I absolutely adore these type of events, these one-off. Just to some people, this is a regular tour event, but to some, this is their Masters. This is, of course, I think Nick Taylor would trade that win for a Masters, right? But in the same sense, he has become a nation sports hero because of what he did last season. And I mean, I would love to see something like that happen again this week. And I'm sure you might have a Canadian on your card. I know I have at least one, and we'll talk about a few of those guys as we do move forward. But just wanted to recap what happened last year, because it was as good as the sport gets, in my opinion, and I would love to see that again. But of course, RPC Canadian Open is a event that rotates between courses such as the majors and some of the other one-off events on the PGA Tour. But this year we're at the Hamilton Golf and Country Club, and yeah, we're going to 112th time of this event, so therefore it is one of the longest standing events on the PGA Tour schedule. 1904 was the first play in the Canadian Open. The field this week, 156 golfers, among them, of course, Rory McIlroy, who has won 2 of the last 3 editions of this tournament, including 2019, where the tournament was last held at Hamilton Country Club. Of course, the COVID pandemic and things threw wrenches in there, 3 years off, so since 2019, this is just the fourth play-in. Of course, Nick Taylor won last season. But what Rory was able to do here in 2019 at Hamilton Country Club, this is not an easy track. I'll break it down here. But what he was able to do with a 61 on the final day, chasing 59 on a golf course that is this difficult, it is one of the greatest rounds of golf I have ever seen in person. I wasn't in person. I mean, with my own eyes, I've gone back and watched historic tape of Tiger Woods and stuff like that. But what he was able to do that Sunday was far off. Matt Kuchar and Webb Simpson tied the lead going into Sunday, and then Rory just blew the doors off the tournament, shooting the 61, and no one was going to touch him en route to, I think it was a 7-stroke victory. But other notables in this field teaming up this week, we have Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood's back after his playoff loss a season ago. Cameron Young's here this week, Heath Legal and Sam Burns. Of course, Nick Taylor, defending champion, first Canadian since Pat Fletcher in 54 to do so. And of course, we're going to have a strong contingent of Canadian golfers this week. Corey Connors, Nick Taylor, Adam Hadwin, Mackenzie Hughes, Taylor Penrith, Adam Svensson, just to name a few of the top guys. Of course, other former winners of this event in this week's field include Jonathan Vegas and Brett Snedeker. So, RPC Canadian Open uses a rotation of courses. As I mentioned, Hamilton Golf and Country Club this week. This is the 5th time it's hosted this event. It's not really one of the more popular, or I guess I won't say popular, most used courses in the rotation. 2019 was the last time it was used. Before that, 2012, 2006, 2003, 1990, and then 1919. Par 77,084 yards. It can be one of those courses that can be attacked in multiple ways. Their bombers have had success here, of course, Rory McIlroy doing so, but we've also seen plotters alike. So I think this makes a unique tournament where it's not just one skill set that's going to be able to win this tournament. I think a lot of guys have multiple tools and multiple ways to attack this golf course, so it's going to be a good one in my opinion. But yeah, after the following the 2019 edition of this tournament, and the Hamilton Country Club underwent an extensive renovation pretty much immediately after. In the renovation, tees, bunkers, and greens on all 27 holes at Hamilton were reconstructed. A new irrigation system was put in place. And this was like what we saw at the Colonial. It was more geared toward sustainability than playability, this renovation here. So just making the course, being able to hold up, of course, Canada, harsh winters, weather, all of that. So doing so, they were able to, add to the longevity and then, in a sense, play the playability of the course as well. Additionally, several holes saw at least 20 yards added to them. Again, we talk about this every single week with the ever, increasing distance of these tour professionals. It has to be done, right? We have to add some yardage here or there to add a challenge to some of these guys, as the tour average is like 290 now off the tee with a driver. But after this 3-year renovation, of course, interrupted by the COVID pandemic, this golf course received Golf Digest Renovation of the Year in 2022. So it was fantastically done. So, in all, the layout and routing of the course was pretty much unchanged from the last time we saw it in 2019. So, in all, this Harry Colt design was who was the architect behind some of the more infamous Open Championship venues, Royal Portsmouth and Royal Liverpool. It's a far from what we see over with his designs in England with the link style. This is a parkland, bent grass course in the mainland surrounded by trees. However, the similarities between the courses is the oversized undulating greens as its greatest line of defenses. The course features dramatically sloping greens, and therefore birdies are hard to come by. Putting will be very crucial this week. We did see, like I said, Rory McIlroy dominate this course in 2019. That is far from the norm. In 2019, this actually ranked as one of the hardest non-major courses on the entire PGA Tour schedule. So don't take what you saw from Rory McIlroy and think this is going to be a birdie fest, because it's far from it. Actually, over 4 rounds, of median score of this tournament in 2019 was +2. So that adds to how impressive Rory was able to attack this course in 2019. But Parker, anything about this course, field, anything you want to mention that I failed to address before we move forward?
No, I mean, I think the one thing that I wanted to call out, and you did a great job of kind of laying out the history there and a lot of the course breakdown, is the logo. If you have not checked out the logo for the RBC Canadian Open, it is a silhouette of Nick Taylor with his putter toss. So, couldn't describe it any
Awesome.
better, the way that you kind of wrapped up the scene from last year. It was definitely one of the best tournaments of the season. But if you have a chance to check out that new RBC Canadian logo, it's really cool. Definitely, advocate for you to Google for that and just take a peek at the new logo. So Nick Taylor, even more like you said, the win on his home soil, breaking the streak, was already history enough. Now he's got a logo to live up to. So
That is
I
amazing.
personally am excited to see if you have him on your card. I think he's going to have an interesting time trying to defend with kind of the responsibilities of the defending champion, bring to someone that's going to be seen as kind of like a local hero, but also a competitor in the weekly tournament. So, no, I think you did a good job teeing up the tournament, but I just wanted to plug the logo there. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't even know about that, so I'll have to check that out myself when I leave the podcast here. But I want to mention that the weather this week does not look great as well. The course was actually closed today,
sure.
Tuesday, as we recorded this, because of heavy rainfall. So they didn't want added foot traffic to the course. Those with tickets for Tuesday were allowed to come tomorrow or today for listeners on Wednesday. And then there is some chances of some significant rain throughout the week. Of course, that's how the PGA Tour has been each and every week this season. It's insane with the rain, but
Right.
of course, going to play some wet conditions, and we'll see if it adds to the difficulty or helps the course be a little bit easier. We'll see if this new irrigation system and drainage system can hold up to this added
And I mean, I
rainfall.
know the draw can always play an impact on who gets it worse and not, but as much as we want to roll our eyes at, a potential another Monday, a late Sunday finish, delayed rounds, it's the same golf course for all the players. So while it's more of an annoyance, I think us as fans almost get more disappointed than the players themselves,
Of
because
course.
they are professionals. They are masters of their craft. They're going to play good in wet conditions and dry conditions. It doesn't necessarily matter. But in terms of like a tracking experience and all of, the things that come with being in the entertainment world, which sports are part of, the weather definitely plays a big impact. So it does suck, and hopefully the delays aren't too bad. But I still expect these guys to play fantastically at a test that's going to be worthy of their presence.
There we go. All right, guys, we're going to break down our DFS suggestions as we do each and every week. Of course, we have 6 monetary categories according to DraftKings pricing. We have our $10,000 plus, our 9,000s, 8s, 7s, 6s in the 5,900 and below price range that we've seen for the third straight week, which, Jake and I are big fans of. I'm sure Parker has some interesting takes down there. That's where you can find some real fun ones. So before we do kick it off here, though, $10,000 price range. Of course, each and every week there's only a handful of guys here, and I'll kick it off here because it's pretty straightforward in my opinion. It's Rory McIlroy. I know his ownership's going to be through the roof, but it's presumed he's going to win this event. No matter what his ownership is going to be, if he's going to win this event, you kind of have to have him in your lineup because if he is owned in 35 to 40, where I think his projection is going to lie, that's 35 or 40% of the field that's going to be higher than you if he is to win and you don't have him in your lineup to then diversify later on. In the event he doesn't win, of course, it's nice if you play multiple lineups to have the difference there. There's 40% of the field that you're better up on. Either way, Rory McIlroy is going to come this week. He is in some insane form. Zurich Classic winner, won the Wells Fargo, had a decent performance at the PGA with a T12. I know it was a little bit underwhelming to what most people were to believe. Many thought he'd come in there and win there as the last person to win at that golf course the last time the PGA was held there. But man, if you look at what he does, there's no lack to his game, right? This is Rory McIlroy. And, I presented this question actually. One of my good friends, Keith Fleming, presented this question. Maybe outside of Tiger Woods, was there a more or is there a better golfer than a Rory McIlroy on his A game? If everything is clicking correctly and he is, doing everything to the best of his ability, is there a better golfer in the entire existence of the world outside of, say, Tiger Woods?
No,
You
I
know,
mean, I agree. I think that's why he's had the 61 in difficult conditions and run away with it and had, runaway wins at major championships. I think, his ability to carry the ball with the length of his driver and then also dial in the wedges and then he can get hot with the putter. You know, yeah, he's done it for longer than anybody else that's active on tour at this level, right? So I think, his talent speaks alone. And to your point, yeah, other than maybe some historians of the game might get upset with us, but yeah,
of
other than
course.
Tiger, I mean, it's hard. Even Jack, I think Rory at his peak, he just is a different level of excellence, and it's cool to watch whenever you get to see him at that top form. The Rory diehards will probably tell you that it doesn't happen as much as they'd like, but when it does happen, it's a joy to watch.
That's the thing. It's kind of few and far between, but when he's in chase mode and everything's clicking and he's able to, even what he did in the Wells Fargo, right? That back nine that blew the doors off that tournament and took Xander
Absolutely.
completely out of it, like insane. And that's where the argument came from when Keith presented that on his podcast or on the ESPN radio station he was on. But yeah, when everything's clicking, I mean, the combination of being the longest guy on tour, pretty much even to this date, with the elite accuracy he brings to
Right.
that driver, just that alone just takes some people out of the golf course because not only is he hitting it further than anyone, it's dead straight down the center of the fairway. Like it's not like he's hitting
Absolutely.
325 into the rough or into the woods. It's 325 dead straight down the center, 330, and then just chip shots on there. And again, you mentioned he needed a hot putter, and there's no touching him. So that's my play in this price range. I know you got to spend up, but again, this is 12-1. Scotty Scheffler, when he's in these fields, are 13-3, and we're still playing Scotty Scheffler. And this is the type of odds we're seeing with Rory McIlroy this week at the, 3.5 fours for Rory this week. I don't think there's another guy in this price. I mean, there's obviously some other guys in this price range. I don't know if you agree with me here on playing Rory McIlroy at this price with his ownership. What's your thoughts here?
No, I mean, I agree. You just have to play Rory, and I think this is this is meant to be no disrespect. I heard someone use this analogy. It's like the weather's bad at the top of the mountain. So just because we're going to say bad things about Sahith, Tommy, and Shane in this comparison doesn't mean that they're not also fantastic options. But we're comparing them with Rory McIlroy, right? So I think that Shane and Tommy and Sahith have all shown that this season they can have finishes of 40s or even missing the cut, on an off week, right? And that's what you cannot have from your anchor of your lineup. And Rory's floor is so much higher than that. And I think the 2000 or so different that you have to pay up to get him is worth it because of it. And I think we'll get down to this, later on in the show. But I think also the reason why I like Rory as a slam dunk is because the value at the 7,000
Mhm.
range ish. I think you can start with Rory and still fill a fantastic lineup
Of
that
course.
you're not handicapped. So yeah, I think Rory's the play. Do I think any of those other three guys could win the tournament? Sure. Do I think they could also not contend on Sunday? Also, yes. And you can't have that volatility with your anchor.
Great point there. You mentioned it. Rory's floor this week is, of course, he can come out here and crap the bed, but it's Rory McIlroy. The way he's playing right now, if this is Rory going into the Canadian Open at this time last year, sure, 12-1, in that price range, you're gonna be like, oh, pump the brakes. But this is a Rory McIlroy who's won back-to-back tournaments and then top 15 in a major. This is a good Rory
when he
McIlroy.
didn't play well.
Yeah, the quote unquote didn't play well the T12. I mean, same thing with Scotty.
Yeah.
Didn't play well T8. It happens with these type of guys. So again, you play us a Heath, you play someone else, very welcome miss the cut, have a bad week, withdraw after a bad first round. Rory McIlroy, as an ambassador of the game, always here at the RBC Canadian Open, is always the figurehead leading this golf tournament. He's going to be there. He's going to bring his A game. And again, not going to falter this week, in my opinion. So, with that being said, let's just move quickly down here to our $9,000 price range. Disparity can begin here. Who's your play here, Parker?
So I think the more that I have looked at, kind of what the golf community is on, I think it scares me with this pick, but it has to be Alex Noren, right, as the number one option in $9,000 range. I understand that it sometimes makes me a little anxious when there's this much of the community on one person, but his recent form is just too hard to ignore compared to the others in his range, right? And I think that's at the end of the day, what we're doing here is we're comparing him to the others in the $9,000 range. And I think that, just to pull up his recent finishes, I mean, he's had nothing worse than a T23 in his last, or T24 in his last 8 tournaments, with, 2 top 10s and 3 more top 15s. So he's just raking out top finishes. He doesn't really have a hole in his game at all. Like you mentioned earlier with your course description, any type of game can win at this course. And if you're excelling at everything in your game, why shouldn't you be a good fit at a place? So I think he's my number one. And then my number two is kind of the polar opposite. It's a Cam Young, right? Somebody that when they're on, they can win a tournament. Now, he's yet to do that on the PGA Tour, but he's come darn close a handful of times. And I think at the price that he's at, being able to carry the ball and get hot with his approach, I think it could be worth a flyer. But I think Alex Noren is hands down the number one option in this range. And then after that, I'd go Cam Young.
Yeah, right there with you. I absolutely adore Alex Noren this week, as does everyone in the golf betting community, right? On Twitter right now. It's him and another guy. Also, we talk about him later on here. I think you can probably assume who that's going to be if you listen to this podcast. But yeah, Alex Noren, I mean, you mentioned it, last 8 tournaments, T24 or better. I mean, that floor alone is worth playing your defensive lineup because, again, not going to miss the cut because he has it in 12 events this season. And everything else he brings, I mean, T12th the PGA Championship as well. A third at the CJ Cup, Byron Nelson, which again, that takes distance off the tee to compete. And Alex Noren isn't the longest whatsoever in a third place there. Again, around the green, the best scrambler on tour currently, 4th in par 4 average scoring, 7th in the tee to green, sand saves, everything you need at a golf course. Not only this golf course, but overall, I mean, tee to green obviously is the benchmark for pretty much any golf course in the PGA Tour schedule. Just getting the ball from the tee to the green, and then from there your putter takes over. But that's what I use as the benchmark, right? And he's 7th on tour doing that with 8 straight top 24s, not missing a cut this season. Is a slam dunk. I know you're spending up. If you're playing Rory, it's kind of hard to go 12-1 and 9-9. But if you want to be someone to, maybe ignore the $10,000 altogether, pair up 2 9s. You mentioned it with a Cam Young and Alex Noren here, or even if I had to go somewhere else, I'm going Maverick McNealy at 9-2. Again, not sure why he's in the 9-2, but recent form suggests that he could be here. He has only missed 2 cuts this season. Those 2 cuts were a Zurich Classic team event in the American Express way back in February. Beyond that, he's made every cut that he's been here. T17th at the Charles Schwab, T23 at the PGA Championship. This is the type of golf course that I really like Maverick McNealy at, right? He's also placed
Quick
T9.
point to your Maverick McNealy is I do have it's really hard to find stats that are like readily available on bent grass putting ranks.
Of course.
But this is a bent grass course. And Ron Cluse, who puts out a lot of good statistics on Twitter, put out something last year that it was a compiled data points from 2020 to 2023. So still a pretty good, set of data. Maverick McNealy's number 4 in bent grass putting. Alex Noren is 7th across the whole PGA Tour. So I think, you get somebody where they're comfortable too. But yeah, I just had to add that point about Maverick because he's the best bent grass putter in this field. So definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, and if you're ever looking for grass specific putting strokes gained, I have it on the WeKnowFantasy.com. WinOnFans.com, click strokes gained putting progress at the top, and I have it. Mine begins just last year, but again, you have a full year and a half pretty much of data of bent grass, Powa, Bermuda. It's all broke down for you, even fescue, all of that. It's on that website as well. But you mentioned there, these guys are, bent grass is the hardest grass to putt on the PGA Tour, in my opinion, and historically speaking. I mean, maybe a Poa, but we only see that so often. But compared to a Bermuda, where anyone can really get hot, a bent grass compared with these hairy colt designs, with the undulations, the large size of these greens, putting is going to be absolutely crucial this week. And I bet McNeely is, routinely one of the best on the tours in doing so. But he also combines that with some very plus distance off the tee and a strong approach game as well. That's why I like Maverick McNeely. He does a lot of things rather well, but that putter with the distance and approach, I think that's just a perfect storm. And at 9-2, a decent value, maybe not, this is a weaker field, right? But 9-2, his ownership's going to be rather low. So if you're looking for some disparity, if you're playing maybe a Rory McIlroy and a 9-2, you can squeak him in there with some other guys. Do like Maverick McNeely this week as well. All right, on to the 8K price range. The other name that I was alluding to there was Aaron Rye at 8-9. I won't beat a dead horse here because it's Alex Noren and Aaron Rye this week. The only thing that scares me about Rye is the putter, right? You need a good putter here this week, and Rye is very bad at putting. Everything else there, tee to green approach, around the green, he's going to bring his A game when it comes to that. But if you have to trust him to compete with a flat stick, it's going to be rough. I did put in my article, I don't think he can win this event, in my opinion, because of the putter. But a DFS play, I think he's got a safe floor in doing so. But on the reverse of that, it's going to be the ownership. His ownership is going to be through the roof, especially here at 8-9. A lot of people will be going the Rory Rye stack because it's readily available. So if I had to pick someone else, another probably popular name is Akshay Bhatia, 8-1. Discount the ownership because his recent run of form hasn't been ideal since his victory at the Valero. But man, when it comes to approach, when it comes to long irons, when it comes to tee to green, even short irons, driving accuracy, and that putter has become a weapon for Akshay. The last 2 years, Akshay has been one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour. Even when he burst on the scene at such a young age, he's been one of those kind of like prodigy children we've followed for a long time. He's been around since 18, 19 years old on the PGA Tour, and he's still under 24 years old. But he's went to the lab this offseason and came back with a putter that is putting him in contention, more often than not, right? It's so, but again, it's not as bad as a year ago, Akshay Bhatia, right? It is actually somewhat competent. And he's the type of guy that he's not going to come out here and gain 8 strokes on the green, 6 strokes on the green. He's the type of guy, if he gets to even or if he can gain maybe 1 or 2, that's what's going to put him in contention, right? The Valero, he really spiked, and that's what won him the golf tournament. But the irons are always going to be there for Akshay. The tee to green numbers, the driving stats, all of that's going to be always be there for Akshay. It's the putter, and he's proven this year to have it more often than not. So at 8-1, when you have a guy in this price range, Aaron Rye, who's going to garnish a ton of ownership. I love Akshay this week. Again, his run of form isn't great. This is one of those events where it's not a signature event. It's not a major. It's kind of one of those one-off events where he can kind of, take it back a notch and get back to his winning ways.
I love it. Yeah, I think Akshay is a great call. He's somebody that is, on the same lines as, when they're on their best, they're hard to beat. I think he's in that level of skill. It's just he's got to be obviously much more consistent, but pounds it off the tee, can hit it, at every stick, shape it both ways. So I very much like the Akshay pick. In my $8,000 range, I'm going with one of your boys that I'm surprised that you're not on, who has had great form recently, and that's Tom Kim. I'm sure in this range, there's a lot of value. It's hard to pick everybody, right? But I do think that Tom Kim has kind of developed back into the form that it was when he came onto the scene, where his floor might not be the floor of a Rory McIlroy, where he's guaranteed a top 10, but he's pretty much T30ing every tournament that he plays in right now. Very consistent, straight off the tee, hits it pretty close. He needs to get hot with the putter, similar to an Aaron Rye. He kind of reminds me of somebody who's going to give himself plenty of chances. It's the putting on whether or not he'll be able to actually contend and give you that value that you need from that pick. The other 2 guys that I like in this range, my first Canadian is going to come off the board. It's Mackenzie Hughes. He's had 7 straight cuts before missing the PGA Championship. So I think maybe just take some time off, really tough field. I think in a weaker field, he kind of shines a little bit more than normal. But he had a T3, a T6, and a T14 in that run up to the PGA Championship. So he was in great form. I think some time off for somebody that already has it kind of going in the season is going to be a good person to lean on and you have to have a Canadian in your lineup somewhere
Gotta.
here soon. So that's my first rip there, and then my last guy in this section is EVR, Eric Van Ruyen. I think that he's another guy that he's a great putter, first off. And then if he gets hot with the approach game, he can give himself, 4 to 5 15-footers in a row, and he'll make 3 of them if he gives them those chances. So I think in a tournament that, like you mentioned, it might not need 24 under par. I think one really good round from EVR could carry him through the whole tournament. And I think he's done that in the past. And I think that could be a similar outline this week, is that either round 1 or round 2, he goes low with like a 64, 65, and then kind of coasts to T27. But at that value, it's not terrible. And for somebody that if you could put 2 of the rounds together, then he's in the final group, right? So I think he's at least a worthy flyer there. So those who I would be going with in my 8 to 8,900 range.
Yeah, speaking of Tom Kim, of course, everyone knows Tom Kim's my guy, right? You alluded
I
to it
know.
there.
Even if he's my pick, he's your pick.
It's hard for me to, I could play Tom Kim every single week, right? And in the background, I definitely have, an underlying Tom Kim bet somewhere. Maybe I don't advertise it, but it's always there just in case it does happen, right? Because he's my
Yeah.
guy. But you mentioned that the floor is super safe with Tom Kim. It's if the putter shows up, if he's going to be in contention or not. And again, this is a course that doesn't require distance, right? That's what he lacks to compete on these big courses is the distance. He's never going to have that distance. But the elite iron play and all of that's going to come to this game. If he can get the putter going, a great play. Even if the putter doesn't show up, he's still, like you mentioned, he's T30 or right around T30, and that's with poor putting. So one off with a spike putting week, that's a T10, top 25, top 15, just like that. Same with like the Siwoos when I play Siwoos. Those are the guys that their floor is so safe because they're routinely losing 4 to 5 strokes each tournament on the greens. The 1 week they do have a strong putter, it's a top 5, top 10. EVR, then same thing. We talk all the time about he needs to get a hot putter, But in the same sense, golfers can get hot irons too. EVR isn't the greatest of iron play, but he can come into a tournament and have a hot iron play combined with his elite putter that he always brings to each tournament. You have yourself a recipe for success there. That's DFS, right? You got to find the right ownership to skill ratio. That's half the battle. And I think EVR comes in this week, especially with some Canadians in this price range, some big names like Rye, Tom Kim. Those are the guys will take some ownership away. So I do like all your plays there. So keep the ball rolling here, rolling to the $7,000 price range. I'll let you kick this one off here, Parker.
Cool. Yeah, I've got 2 kind of guys headlining, but as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, this is a range that I like a lot. So I'm going to list a couple guys here in detail, and then I've got just a flyer list that I'm going to spit at you. So Taylor Pendrith is a guy that's on my outright card. I think he could win the tournament. I think he's wildly underpriced for a guy that's had a fantastic season. Another guy like Mackenzie Hughes, who did miss the cut at the PGA Championship, just fielding golf, really tough test. I'm not going to hold too much stock in that when before the PGA, he went T10, won the CJ Cup, T11, T11. So he's in great form. He was battling a shoulder injury earlier this year. They talked about it during the week of his win. He was battling it that week. But he seems to be pretty healthy, and he's somebody that not only fits the course mold, he's a good bent grass putter, and it's such a value play. I feel like I've got to go with my gut here, and that he's underpriced. I think he could be up there in the mid 8s with someone that's won this season. So I think you're kind of missing out on a potential winner by not taking Pendrith. And then I also have Davis Thompson. He's somebody that I've been on numerous times. Unfortunately, he's cost me more money than he's won me because he's yet to win on the tour. But I've thrown numerous long shot flyers in this guy's way. He's got all the talent in the world. He's coming off a T17 and a T2 among 8 top 25s this season. So another guy that's pretty low on the board that I think is, giving you value of that might be like a Corey Connors, who I think is just priced because of his name this week and who hasn't really played that well this year. So just a couple other names that I like, but I'm not going to go into detail, are Bobby McIntyre, I think, is finding his footing, Matt Wallace, Mark Hubbard, Seamus Power, and Adam Svensson. I like all of those guys in that range. That's why I think that you could definitely, roster Rory with no problems and still find guys that you think can play well in the tournament.
Yeah, Jake here on this podcast has kind of become the Bobby Mack guy, right? The Robert McIntyre. Each week he plays him. He's had some great performances. He's playing really well, and he's not a guy that just seems like he's kind of course proof well, right? He can kind of play every type of course. We like that about him. But going back to your Pendrith pick, he very well, like you said, he won the season, and DFS and outrights, I like to play these local guys. Like you look at Canadians and people will, if they had to choose between two guys, they're going to say, oh, Canadian, I'm going to click that guy. So you think on that aspect alone, he would be in the 8,000s, but again, very well priced for him there. And Davis Thompson's also another guy I wrote in my article. I absolutely love what he's been doing. The form, kind of a safe floor type of play at 74 or 7,800. Can't go wrong there, but headline in my way is another guy that, again, I like to throw long shots at each and every week, and that's Doug Gim, 7,400. Just elite approach play, man. He had such a great run of form early this season between the Farmers Insurance Open and the Players, where he placed T16th or better in 5 straight events. I know it's been a bit since then, but the ability for him to compete in some of these bigger tournaments, I mean, the Players with the top 16 there, he's had some great performances this season. I mean, he also made the cut last week with Charles Schwab. Nothing to write home about. T35, the PGA Championship, the strongest field in golf to date at the PGA Championship, at top 35 there. So Doug Gim, again, I think is a guy with a safe floor, elite iron. He's going to bring that each and every week. He's 18th on tour and tee to green, drives the ball super straight, does well in the par fours and par threes, green regulation, scrambling. Again, the putter is what's going to be the difference for him, but it's not like he's been putting poorly this season either. He's 93rd on tour, just overall strokes gained putting, which is about the average mark, right? If Doug Gim brings you the same thing, we talk about this, he's not that bad of a putter. So if he can come in here with a spike putting week, Doug Gim combined with everything he brings can have a run for it. Now, I know I place an outright on him, but Doug Gim is so volatile. Like, just the sense that he could be putting together on pace to shoot a 63 going into like hole 16, then he'll triple bogey out of nowhere. That's Doug Gim for you, and that's the roller coaster you have to take if you're going to place an outright or have him in your DFS, because that is coming. That is going to happen each and every week, possibly each and every round. He can go super low, then just blow it up just like that. But again,
And
this
that's
is
why
DF.
guys are in the $7,000 range, right? Because they can all have that to them. If they
That's another thing.
if they were, yeah, exactly. So
We talk about this all the time. Guys down here aren't going to be super polished guys, and people are, expecting us to find, the most polished of people here in 7, even the 8K. I mean, 8K is where you start hitting your drop off. Where, typically, in my opinion, 8K is kind of where they put the people they don't know what to do. Like the 9K guys who are in bad form, and the 7K guys who won recently or in good form, right? The 8K is kind of just a place they're thrown. But yeah, Doug Gim's my play there. Absolutely love him. And then we'll just roll directly into the $6,000 price range. And I'll lead the way here. Two guys I do like here for DFS. I like Andrew Novak at 6,500. Very good from the sand, par threes. He does 22nd tee to green, 24th approximate hole for 200 plus. Good with those long irons. I love to see that 27th green regulation. Now, he has missed the cut in his last outing, the Charles Schwab Challenge. Again, 6K price range. You're not going to get a perfect golfer down here, but he's made the cut in 9 of his last 11 events. Love to see that. And he had a run events early this season where he placed T8th at the WM Phoenix Open, not an elevated event, but a big field nonetheless. T8 at the Mexico Open and T9 at the Cognizant Classic. Cognizant Classic, a very challenging golf course as well. Love to see that compared to what we're going to see this week at this golf course. And I also like Mac Meisner at 6,500. I have him on an outright at 90-1. I know some people have him much longer, but man, around the green, that guy's a wizard. He's 18th around the green, 24th approximate hole from 200 plus yards. Long irons are ideal. Sand saves, par threes, tee to green, everything you want. Meisner's here, and he's also fresh off a T5 in his last out of the Charles Schwab Challenge. T13 in Myrtle Beach, some great form. Also plays T10th early season of Valero Texas Open. So, two guys I like there in the 6K price range. Parker, who we playing?
yeah, I had Mac on my board for a lot of the stuff that you said. So I'll jump straight to the second guy, who is Patton Kazire, who
Yes,
had a really, really rough start to the season, like really rough.
yes,
He
as
missed,
bad
I
as
think,
you
like
can be.
6 or 7 cuts in a row. But he's a good player who's found his form. And in finding form, it's not just, barely making the cut. He's had 4 straight top 30s. So he's kind of sneaking into the back half of these leaderboards. Hit a T10 at the Myrtle Beach Classic, his last start. So I think that, he's somebody that in this range, you're looking for made cuts, right? So I think with somebody that is a PGA Tour veteran that has found some recent form, I think I'd be willing to kind of ride that down at this range. Another guy is another Canadian that I'm going to mention is Ben Silverman. He's somebody that he's a really good putter. And like we mentioned, I think these are courses where if you get hot with the flat stick, you can kind of contend, even if you don't have maybe the longest distance, right? And he's one of the shortest hitters on tour, so that's kind of what he needs. But yeah, I like him, and he's coming off back-to-back top 30s, so he's in good form at a good price, and another Canadian guy to wave the flag for.
Yeah, Ben Silverman found his way in my betting card. Really, really good around the green and out of the sand. He is a wizard around the green. At one point, was the tour's best around the green. Before I think Matsuama has a title right now. But yeah, love your plays. Eric Azire is a guy I've been on recently as well in these value price ranges. And you mentioned it when it comes to the 6K and the 5,900 below price range we see once in a while. Really, what we need these guys to do is to make the cut. Like that's basically what we're gambling on, is get these guys across the cut line for a 66 head in the weekend. And that's a big thing here. With 156 golfer field, last week was 133. So getting a 6 for 6 and 156 field golfer is major. And that really, instantly, if you're a 6 for 6, I shouldn't say all the time, but you're going to be at least winning your money back at that point. So getting these guys across the cut line is the biggest hurdle we face here. And I think everyone you mentioned has a great chance to do that. So with the final price range this week here, Parker, the 5,900 and below price range, there's some interesting names down here. And I guess, man, I'm going to lead off here with a guy from the PGA Tour Americas, the Canadian PGA Tour essentially, and Matthew Anderson at 5,400. I'm afraid he may be, excuse me, a little popular because he is absolutely killing it on that tour. In 6 events he's played, he has a victory at the ECP Brazil Open. He has what is this? As well as 3 top threes and 5 top 25s this season. Excuse me, 2 top threes. So he's absolutely killing it on the PGA Tour Americas. He's placed at third or better in half of the events he's played on that tour. Again, he is Canadian, so that helps that aspect of things. On the PGA Tour Americas, he is first in scoring average, first in total birdies, fifth in par 3 average scoring, 10th in par 4 average scoring. So I do like that play. And if I had to mention someone else, it's Joel Damon at 5,800. Again, maybe a little bit more ownership down here than what you would like because the name value alone as a fan favorite. But man, with this guy, as bad as he can be with the putter, and he is arguably one of the worst, probably 5-10 putters in the PGA Tour, the approach play is always super strong from Joel Dahman, including his long iron. So if there were to be someone to get across the cut line just on iron aspect alone, I think Dahman can do it at 5,800. I'm not sure if the putter will allow it this week, but just a name I wanted to mention down in this price range.
No, I like it. I think those are 2 good plays, and we're fishing down here, right? So,
Of course.
we're kind of reaching, but I do actually have somebody in this range on my outright card at 140 to 1 long shot, and that's Robbie Shelton. He's one of the best around the green on the tour, kind of coming off some form, and I think I got a chance at sneaking some placements out of him. I don't necessarily think I see him taking it home, but I think at that range, he's worth a flyer. And then Kelly Craft is another Patton Kazire-esque play here. He's a PGA Tour vet that might be a little mispriced. He's coming off, I think he's on like injury exemption or something like that this year, which is why he's not been playing every week. But when he's gotten the opportunity to play, he's made the cut, more than half the time. So I think, with 2 top 15s in his last 4, I think could be worth a flyer on a guy that, is a PGA Tour vet, and like Kazire, when they get it going, they know how to keep it going. So those are my two main guys in the fishing range.
Yeah, I like that. I like that term, of fishing range. And when it comes down to this price range, the experience alone could be the difference maker. The Sheltons, the Diamonds here. I think that just the experience alone, if you're going to trust them, or may I say against a Matthew Anderson who, with a huge performance this week could really change his entire life. But the stress of it, if you're trying to get across the cut line with those 2 guys, you're going to favor the PGA Tour veteran who's been doing it for 5-10 years in doing so. So that's a great aspect of that as well. So with our DFS plays behind us, let's move on to our betting card. And each week we have 3 betting categories. We have our overall favorite. I like to phrase this one as, if you could only place 1 bet this week, what would it be and why? We have our personal favorite category again, maybe someone you're on the community's out on, just a personal favorite golfer, or just a great value play altogether. And of course, a long shot, self-explanatory, longest odds you're on. So Parker, kicking off here. You have 1 bet to make this week. What bet is that and why?
It's Alex Noren. I wrote it down, and as you were asking the question, I was like, I should veer left and I should be different here, but I just, I like him too much and he's just in too good a form. I don't want to be off the train when it's chugging home. So I'm going to stay on board with everybody else. And I'm going to go with Alex Noren here as my favorite, for all the reasons that we've talked out at nauseum, pretty much, right? He's the man this week. So let's see him carry it home for us.
I mean, I'm gonna be boring with you. That's my play here. If I had one bet, it's the Alex Noren. I
I
have him
love it.
25-1. Like you said, the
Yeah,
form, it's getting to a point where
it's
it's
too
gonna
good.
happen. It's gonna happen, right? You can't ignore what's going on here, and just to keep plugging away the way he's doing, he's gonna cross our finish line sooner rather than later, in my opinion. Hopefully, it's this week. Get ourselves a nice community victory. All right,
Yeah.
personal favorite category here. Who's that gonna be for you, Parker?
So I think I mentioned that he was on my outright card, but my value play, personal favorite play this week is Taylor Pendrith, top Canadian at plus 700. I think Corey Connors is terribly mispriced. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse at like plus 210. And then you've got, a handful of other guys like Adam Hadwin, Svensson. There's a ton of Canadians in this field. So there's, a lot of people out there. I think getting Pendrith as like the fourth or fifth, odds made guy in that section is stealing value. So I like that play at 7-1.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most recent Canadian to win on the PGA Tour. He's done it probably more often than anyone else in that field or in that range. And again, I love to place these by region bets. I do them more often so on the majors just because they're more readily available. But again, you're getting a guy
Yeah.
at 7-1 in a very rather limited field, right? So again, the
Yeah.
value is there for Benrith, and I absolutely love that play. Um, I guess I'm gonna go with uh I'll go Akshay at 50-1. Just the win equity is there with Akshay. He's done it recently to Valero. When everything's clicking for Akshay, he's hard to beat. I just think the 50-1 value for some guy who's won on the PGA Tour already this season and is trending in the right direction to continue to do that. It's not like it was a one-off victory for Akshay. He's a contention. I mean, maybe not in the most recent month or so, but before that, he's been in contention. He's now a two-time PGA Tour champion. Although the Barracuda, you can say what you want about it, it still counts as a PGA Tour victor, right? But the Valero was a legitimate one, and I like the value 50-1. So long shot this week, Parker. Who's the longest odds you're on? You're hoping to chip away at the rent or mortgage with this week.
My man Robbie Shelton, bring it home. 140-1 to place in the top 10 via bet 365. That's my play. I think as the pure outright market, I think he's as high as 200, 230-1 in some places, but you get him at 140-1 to place in even money each way the top 10. So I think that's worthy of a sprinkle, not too much, but yeah, at that odds, even a small bet will pay out your mortgage, like you said. So that's my guy.
There we go. I'm going with the guy you mentioned, Ben Silverman at 125-1. Again, just had to get someone on the Canadian market right on the betting card,
Yeah,
and
have to.
I like what he brings to the table, man. The elite around the green play that can really elevate, that can really change a tournament if you're able to scramble or get yourself into what wasn't a birdie opportunity into a birdie opportunity just like that because of what he can do. And of course, you mentioned he's a very strong putter as well. Again, on these bent grass, on these greens in Canada, I think it's going to be a game changer. And I think someone like Ben Silverman could possibly win this tournament, and I'm here for it. So, anything else, Parker, about this PGA Tour event, RBC Canadian Open, before we move forward?
No, I'm excited for a good event, and let's hope to Mother Nature to give us a good 4 days, and we have a final ending on Sunday that's even close to last year. If it sniffs the entertainment of last year, then we're in for a great Sunday.
Yeah, if you could even give me half of what we saw last year, I'd
Yeah,
be even happy with
exactly.
that. So, all right. So, luckily for us, that is not the only golf being had this week as a DP World Tour continues on with its European swing, with the European Open over there in Germany, hopping from Belgium to Germany. Last week was a good one for me, 101 with Nacho Elvire, claiming the Sadul Open. So that was a fun one. He did not make it easy. Had a 4-stroke lead on going into Sunday and did not make it easy whatsoever. But we sweated that one out, and it was a good one. But moving on here, the DP World Tour, the European Open, which was once a nomadic event that up until 2009 saw its rotation around England, but now it's being held every year. And Germany, excuse me, it was fell off the schedule in 2009. 2015, it returned to the DP World Tour schedule with its homeland of Germany. It's been held at the um, Green Eagle Resort since 2017. Has been held there ever since. This is the seventh straight season has been held there outside of, I think it's outside of Hamburg, Germany, if I'm not mistaken. But again, this is one of the better DP World Tour fields we have seen thus far this season. We have our typical names: the Rasmus Hogars, the Tom McKibbins, the Bernd Weisbergers, or Richard Mansells, Jordan Smiths, Kaita Nakamina, Laurie Cantor. Those type of guys. They're all going to be here this week. And we also get to see the former Masters champion Danny Willett heated up this week for his first time since his return to Augusta back in April. Of course, McKibben used this victory last season to, as his maiden DP World Tour victory, making himself the youngest Irish-born golfer since none other than Rory McIlroy to win a DP World Tour title. And other former winners of this event at this golf course teed up this week include Marcus Armitage, Richard Envoy, and Jordan Smith himself in 2017. So the Porsche Nord course at Green Eagle Golf Resort just outside of Hamburg, Germany. That is correct. Par 73, 7,882 yards. So I say that figure, which makes it one of the 10 longest golf courses in the world. You can pretty much take that figure and throw it out because we don't know what this course is going to measure because no one knows. There is up to 3 different teen opportunities on each and every hole. So therefore, the yardage is unpredictable because we don't know what the routing is going to be. Last year, it played to 7,455 yards, which is long. Don't get me wrong. That's the shortest the course has ever played since its hosting of this event. I think it was just 20 yards shorter than the year prior. But, listed as one of the 10 longest golf courses in the world. You think driving distance would be key here this week. It is actually not. Historically speaking, the last 6 events held here, driving accuracy has trumped driving distance by a large margin. In doing so, I mean, I think, and part of this, I mean, the length of the paper is scary, but water is in play on 17 of 18 holes this week. So danger lies around every corner. So just whacking the ball as hard as you can down the fairway isn't really going to be the best measure. I think that proves why driving accuracy here is crucial. But this is a Parkland style course with wide fairways. But again, the water is really the biggest main factor here. The greens are overlaid in bent grass and a Paua Annuum mix and are large with big undulations, like what we're going to see in the PGA Tour this week. Past results have suggested that putting is not that important, though, this week. That golfers, they have ranked like 50 or 60th in the field of that respective week in strokes gained putting have gone on to win. So I think the biggest aspect of this course is tee to green numbers, green regulations, things like that. Just getting the ball with your chances, and I think the ball rolls rather easily on these greens, as history does suggest. But beyond that, it's pretty much a tee to green course. The weather going to be wet in Germany as well. We're not going to only be wet here on stateside, or not. We're not stateside this week. Up in Canada, it's going to be wet in Germany as well. 100% chance of rain on Wednesday before the event. You have 40 on Thursday, Friday 70, Saturday 50, and then Sunday 20% chance of precipitation. Some high winds on Sunday, so weather looks like it may be a factor in the DP World Tour as well. Not only the PGA Tour, but yeah. Parker, anything else about this field event course you want to mention before we move forward?
No, I think you summed it up very well. One thing that stood out to me though was the 705-yard par 5, and I know the tees are a difference maker in that they can have it set up shorter, but anything over 700 yards is pretty wild, man. Out here in Colorado, at TPC Colorado, there's a Corn Ferry Tour event, and they have a 770-yard par 5, and I've watched the pros play that in person, and it's pretty cool to see them hit driver, 3-wood, still a long iron into a par 5. Pretty unique. So excited to see how that hole plays an impact in the tournament.
Yeah, we love to see some carnage like that, right?
Yeah.
Looking back at the South African Open of this past year, in this schedule of the DP World Tour, but held back in the fall as they're still in that rotation. That course played like 8,000 yards. So again, elevation had a lot to do with that. I'm sure same thing in Colorado with the elevation. It helps the ball fly much further. But here in Germany, the elevation isn't that significant. So 7,800, maybe knocked down to 75 to 76. We'll see how this golf course plays. It's going to be an interesting one nonetheless. But Parker, I have 4 guys to talk about this week. How many do you have?
I've got 2, and you kind of teased at both of them. So Want me to just
Okay.
start us off there?
Yeah, might as well.
I've got Jordan Smith and Laurie Cantor. I went with kind of to your point. I think there's penalties everywhere, and kind of the research that I put in on this course. Looking forward to seeing it play out. But I think keeping it in front of you, and I took two guys that are ranking in the top 10 to 15 and strokes gained tee to green on the DP World Tour. I think they're both extremely accurate. Going to give themselves plenty of chances if they can get hot with the putter. Either one of them, I think they'll be there come Sunday afternoon. So those are my two picks. Jordan Smith, 2,500, 25 to 1, and Laurie Cantor's at 30 to 1.
Yeah, I will say both those guys were pretty much the first two off my betting card this week as I went elsewhere with some of these guys at the top. But yeah, love what they bring to the table this week. And yeah, you mentioned for all the reasons why. So kicking off my card here is Bern Weisberger, 28 to 1. Again, I talked about the importance of tee to green. I talked about the importance of green regulation percentage for this golf course, and I hyped those up as Weisberger is currently tops on the DP World Tour in both of those aforementioned categories. He's also first in scrambling, first in bogey avoidance. So, in other words, he gets to the green better than anyone. He gets the green regulations more often than anyone, and he's also avoiding bogeys and saving par better than anyone. So what else could you possibly ask for when it comes to this golf course, right? He's also very good with the approach. He's eighth on tour in that. He's 14th in driving accuracy and 32nd off the tee in general. So some decent form coming this week. Nothing to really jump off the page at you, but he has three straight top 25 performances, and he's placed top 25 in 6 events this season. So absolutely love him this week. He headlines my card. Moving on to Frederick LaCroix at 40 to 1, a guy who I've been on and off this season. Early on, he has absolutely killing it. We had a stretch of events where he placed like T5th at the South African Open, which again was that super long golf course I talked about already. He placed third at the Ras Al Khaimah Championship and T4th at the Bahrain Championship. But more recently, T34 in his last out in the Sadul Open, T13 the Volvo China Open. But he also placed fifth here a season ago before he was a full-time DP World Tour guy. He was a challenge tour guy back then with a T5 or a top five here. That's very good. He's also fifth or fourth on tour in tee to green, 11th in green regulations, 12th off the tee, and 18th in driving accuracy, 19th in approach. Absolutely love him this week. And then probably my favorite play this week is Ewan Ferguson at 50 to 1. Somehow Ewan Ferguson always finds his way as my favorite each and every week. He kind of has that way to lure people in. But man, currently fourth on tour in accuracy. He's ninth in scrambling and bogey avoidance, 15th tee to green and approach, 26th green regulations, and 45th off the tee. Once again, the recent form isn't super eye catching, but he has made the cut 8 consecutive events. In those events, he has a run of 6 consecutive top 25 finishes, including a T9 at the Qatar Masters, T7 the Magical Kenya Open, and T11 at the Porsche Singapore Classic. Also placed T14th here a season ago. What's really impressive here, if you're able to make that type of consecutive form on the DP World Tour, is they're in different countries each and every week, right? This isn't like they're bouncing an hour down the road. They're going halfway across the world in some aspects in between weeks, and he's still putting together consecutive made cuts, consecutive top 25. So I love that about Ewan Ferguson. And then my final play this week, my long shot, it's Jason Scrivener, 150 to 1, the Australian. After hitting Nacho Libre at 100 to 1 last week, maybe I'm being a little overconfident here, right? I'm going to go back to another triple digit guy. Hope to make some back to back triple digit victors. But, Scrivener is one of the shortest guys on the tour. I talked about, distance isn't going to be the end all this week, but you're going to want some distance, right? But Scrivener is that really short. But what he does make up for that, he's currently 8th on tour in rating and regulations. He's 8th in driving accuracy, 14th tee to green, 16th off the tee, and 25th bogey avoidance, 27th approach. So he makes up for it elsewhere. We'll see if that the driving accuracy trumping driving distance is really a play this week if Scribner can be in contention, right? Again, mixed results on the season. He's made the cut in back-to-back events coming this week, including a T23 of the Volvo China Open and a T17 of the Janssen Workwear Open. Hasn't been playing a ton of the DP World Tour, but just some guys I love this week, and we'll see what comes of it.
100 to 1 is just a warm up, man. You're going to hit this 150 to 1, and then you'll be celebrating and paying off everything.
Yeah, by that point, I'll just stop betting the PGA Tour and become a full-time DP guy if I hit back-to-back triple-digit winners.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's not it for the golf to talk about this week. We still have the second of the majors on the LPGA. We have the U.S. Women's Open this week. It's actually in my state of Pennsylvania, down in Lancaster, still a bit away from me. And I flirted with the idea of making the drive down, maybe Saturday, Sunday. Maybe I'll still do that if the weather cooperates and I can find some time to do so. But 79th playing of the U.S. Women's Open, it makes it the longest standing major of the women's game. $12 million purse this week. So I love to see the elevation the women's game has seen in the last like 5 years, like the significant investment people or companies, the tour itself, these type of purses we're getting for the women's side of the game. And if you haven't watched the women's, man, it's so fun to watch. They're so gifted and they're so
Oh,
I
good.
guess the word I'm saying is like processed with their swing and how they're able to replicate the perfect swing every single time. It's amazing to watch, but I just love the elevation the game has seen in the last like 5 years or so. A $12 million purse here for the LPGA. They're playing golf courses like last year. The U.S. Women's Open was at Pebble Beach. This week the Lancaster Golf Club or Country Club in Pennsylvania. So it's going to be a good one. 156 women field. Of course, we have to talk about Nelly Cordo, world number one.
Yeah.
We see the dominance of Scotty Scheffler on the PGA Tour. Now take that up a notch. That's Nelly Corda on the LPGA, world number one by a million points. She has won 6 of her last 7 outings on the LPGA. 6 of her last 7 events she has won, including the first major of the season, the Chevron Championship. This is an unprecedented run of form in the world of golf. Like past, present, modern era, whatever you want to say. This is unprecedented. The type of dominance she's having, and it kind of sucks because it's kind of being overshadowed by Scotty Scheffler, rightfully so. What Scotty's doing is pretty amazing too. But man, Nelly Corda is having herself a historic run, and she's only 25 years old as well. But you know, joining her are the rest of the top 25 golfers in the Rolex World Golf Ranking. The most notable absence this week is Lilia Vu, world number 2, who has continued to battle a back injury that has been lingering, has been out since March in doing so. Celine Boutier, Ronan Yin, and Hannah Green round out the top 5 of the World Golf Rankings, with, of course, Corda and Vu. And Allison Corpez, the defending champion of the U.S. Women's Open, won so last season at Pebble Beach by 3 strokes. For the course this week, the Lancaster Country Club of Pennsylvania plays host at par 70 at 6,546 yards. William Flynn Design opened in 1900 flat. There are just 2 par 5s this week, so the ability to score low on long par 4s will be crucial. The course consists of a combination of 2 of the 3 distinct 9-hole courses that Lancaster has to offer, and boy, are they distinct. The Meadow Creek and Dogwood 9s make up the combination to comprise the 18-hole championship Flynn course we'll see this week. The Meadow Creek front 9 is known for its meandering routing, which will require great strategy and placement off the tee, as the Dogwood back 9 plays much differently. It plays much longer than Meadow Creek and includes significant elevation changes, including 5 holes that feature second or uphill second shots. So it's going to be really interesting to see how golfers are able to bounce between these 2 9s that are completely different and take different aspects of the game to attack. One just a plotters and the other one kind of a bomber. So I think it's kind of unique in that aspect, and I'm kind of excited to see that. Again, weather actually is probably the best of the 3 tournaments to talk about this week here in Pennsylvania this week. So we'll see what happens about that. So do you have anyone for us in this tournament here, Parker?
Yeah, I do. I've got one play, and partly because of Nelly Corda's form, right? And I think that there's just no doubting that she will be there
Of course.
on the final 9 holes. She's just too good in every aspect, and there's just no way around it, right? So I think it's got to be one of these other kind of all stars in the group that are going to have to compete with her. And I think one of those that can, because of the course fit, is Brooke Henderson.
Yeah.
She hits it a very long way. She's someone who was right there in the last major with Nelly at the Chevron. But I think the distance difference that they may have off the tee could give Brooke a little bit of an advantage into a lot of these really long par 4s. It's so hard to beat Nelly right now. I would not advocate putting my money against her, but I think Brooke Henderson is somebody that can challenge her because of the distance that she has over Nelly. So she's also T3 in par 4 scoring average. I believe Nelly's number one though, so that's not that much of a stat to
Rightfully
hang
so.
your hat on. So I think though, like I said, the distance is kind of my reasoning for the play there.
Yeah, it makes sense. As the PGA Tour heads of Canada, Brooke is from Canada, so I'm sure if Brooke herself was able to win a major this week, I'm sure the sports world in Canada will be a buzz and be very thankful and cheering her on along the way, just right down there in Pennsylvania, not too far away from the border. But a great play this week. Again, you mentioned it, just the elite distance she brings could be the difference this week, and you got to find some way to find some edge over Nelly Korda, as we do often on the PGA Tour side with Scotty Scheffler, just trying to find something to do. And I think the distance there could be that. What I've done is, it happened in the last major as a Chevron, and I think the Chevron and the RBC Heritage overlapped. And whereas I didn't think about this as I talked about it, but never actually hit the button, was the double with Scotty Scheffler as the
Yeah,
favorite at the RBC, and then Nelly Korda winning the Chevron, and that one hit. So we're doing it again this week. I'm going to do Rory McIlroy to win the RBC Canadian Open and Nelly Korda to win the U.S.
I like
Women's
it.
Open. And I think I was able to get it at MGM at plus 2150. So $10
Sounds
plays
about right.
roughly $225. So I didn't think that was decent odds in my opinion, considering Nelly is probably at the time I think she was 3-6 on MGM, and I think Rory was 400. So I think that's a very plausible to happen this week. That could, a lot of times we do this, and when these overlaps with the women's game, of course, there's always someone of like Nelly Korda or someone very dominant in the women's game at the top to correlate to someone on the PGA. But sometimes it just matches up with a field that there really is no super favorite here. But again, with Rory this week, I think it's a great play, and I have that in my book as well. But a few girls I think this week that could possibly win. I have C Young Kim at 30-1. She's currently third on tour in par four, seventh in both par three and birdie or better, 15th green regulation. She's put together a rather impressive season this year. She's fresh off a T7th in her last outing at the Mizzou Americas Open. She also placed T12th, the event part of the Cognizant Founders Cup. She has two T3s on the season. And she hasn't missed a cut in 10 events and has 7 top 15s, 3 top 10s, and 2 top 5s. So great performance there. My favorite this week to possibly take down Korda is Hannah Green, the Australian, 35-1. Comes in this week in great form. She placed solo second in her last outing at the Mizzou. She also placed T18th at the Cognizant Founders Cup. She won the JM Eagle LA Championship in late April. And she also won the HSBC Women's World Championship this season back in February. She's currently third on tour in par fours and par threes, fourth in green regulation and birdie or better, 23rd in average driving distance, and 29th in putting average. But I think that's my favorite to possibly get it done. And she's, fifth in the world for a reason. Moving on, we have Madeline Sagstrom, 50-1, the Swedish woman there. She is currently fifth on tour in all three of average driving distance, so top five there. She's top five in par threes and birdie or better. And she's also 14th in green regulation. So I do like that. She made the cut her last outing at the Mizzou. Nothing, crazy. But then prior to that, placed solo second at Cognizant and T8th at the Jam Eagle LA Championship. Also placed T30th in the last major at the Chevron Championship. So I'm playing a unit on her. But my long shot this week, 70-1, we have Jin Hee Yim. She is a rookie on the LPGA Tour this season. But although a rookie, she's put together a rather impressive season. She missed just one cut this season. That was her first event back in January. But since March, she has made 5 straight cuts in those. And then in her last 3 events, she has placed 8th at the Chevron Championship, her first major ever, 8th there. T4th at the JM Eagle LA Championship, and then T18th at the Cognizant Founders Cup. 17th on tour in green relations, par fours, and birdie or better, 23rd in par threes, 55th in average driving distance. So a bit of a long shot there, but yeah, I do like the double there with Nelly Korda and Rory McIlroy. I think that's a real possibility
Yeah,
because taking down Nelly is going to be, one tall task.
it's a challenge, but I like the reasons that you laid out for your picks, and I think those are good options. So I think well done.
I appreciate that. So, Parker, anything else about either of these events or anything else you want to put out into the world before we get off here?
No, Nate, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to rejoin you and talk some golf. It's my favorite sport in the world. So any opportunity that I get to yap about it, I appreciate it. So thank you for having me on.
No, I appreciate you hopping on here. I know we've tried to coordinate a few weeks and things just haven't lined up perfectly, but I was glad I was able to get you on here this week. It's always a pleasure to talk golf with
Absolutely.
you. And it's kind of I always find it insane that we're an hour plus deep and there's probably people still listening to us ramble on about golf. So if you're one of
Yeah,
those people, we absolutely adore you. We can't thank you enough because this is great. This is great. And this won't be the last time we'll see Parker. I'm sure he'll be back at some point. And again, I really appreciate you, spending your Tuesday evening just going back and forth about some golf we have this week. But one more time
absolutely,
before we
man.
do
Would
sign off,
rather be nowhere else.
there we go. One more time before we do sign off here, Parker. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on X or Twitter at psmith412. That's where I post all my pics and all of my stuff. So pretty simple.
There we go. And as always, you can follow myself, Nate, on Twitter at WKFNate. Be sure to follow We Know Fantasy on all forms of social media at We Know Fantasy. Visit WeKnowFans.com for some more fantasy sports content. Until next time, guys, we'll see you.